Hey everybody, it's Tony Contaspati from GreatVocalMajority.com, YouTube channel and podcast, and of course website. And today I'm going to talk to you about everything that's actually happening now with this government shutdown and Trump's demand for a border wall. And I'm going to really basically focus on the Democrats here because it's hard for me to see how the Democrats could play this any worse than they have. Now, by all accounts, and I really mean this, Trump seems to be open to a negotiation, and inside of that negotiation, the wall, or his border barrier fence, whatever you want to call it, is really the only non-negotiable demand that he's making. I mean, if you really kind of peel everything away, that's really the one thing that he just is not going to budge on. And so then it becomes the one thing the Democrats focus on. But anyway, but here's why I think the Democrats are really blowing this. Because they could put Trump in a very bad spot if they really thought about it, or if they really believed what they were actually telling the public. Because even if a wall is ineffective, just as they claim, which it probably isn't, but let's say they really believe that. If the wall is allowed to be built and it fails, and it doesn't reduce illegal immigration and illegal border crossings from the southern border, then the Democrats have this tremendous campaign issue. I mean, that's the way I see it. I mean, they can claim with credibility that Trump put the country through an unnecessary shutdown. The Democrats know, however, that the wall will probably work because it's going to be supplemented. It's not just going to be a wall. It's going to be supplemented by men and high-tech detection equipment, and they're going to have new rules on post-apprehension protocols and how they treat people, how long they hold them. You know, they're going to have to hire more judges to adjudicate these claims of asylum in a much more timely fashion. All that's going to need to happen. So they also know that if and when the border wall and everything else that comes along with it works, their political strategy to create an economically dependent underclass will be destroyed. Now that's what really explains their opposition to a wall and a border security agreement. That's why they're fighting Trump so tooth and nail here. Now, if you think about it, they could figure out a path to vote whatever Trump wants in a House and Senate bill. They would just simply have Democrats in both houses, particularly, let's say, in the House, because they're every 2 years. They could find people who are in districts that are totally safe, where no Democrat will challenge them in a primary and no Republican could ever beat them. And they're in basically safe districts. They could have them vote for what Trump is looking for, and they would be safe politically from being unseated, because that's really what they're always afraid of. And in the Senate, well, the Senate, there's something like 20 Republicans are up for re-election in 2020 in the Senate, and that's a schedule that very strongly favors the Democrats, at least it does at the moment. So why wouldn't the Democrats make a deal with Trump? Yeah, well, it's obvious, because they don't really believe the bull that they're throwing you. They don't believe that, because everything favors them going forward in the House and Senate, you would think. Now, maybe not in the presidency, but in the House and Senate. So what the Democrats are trying to do now is they're basically trying to call Trump's bluff about declaring a national emergency, because that's a big step. But Trump is holding out that national emergency declaration like a carrot. You know, it's his best, it's what the negotiation experts call a best alternative to a negotiated agreement, or a BATNA. And That's what Trump's BATNA is. Now, Democrats and open borders activists are certainly going to challenge Trump in court if he declares a national emergency. They're going to try to forestall it. They're going to ask for all kinds of delays. And, they'll probably come up with courts that'll approve of those delays. But it eventually will get to the Supreme Court, probably quickly. And there Trump has the advantage because not only does he have a court that would side with him just ideologically, he has the law on his side. There's a 42-year-old statute in place that grants the president very broad powers in declaring a national emergency and the kind of things he can do in a national emergency. Now, there is protocol here. The Congress can override what the president does in a national emergency declaration, but the Democrats don't have the votes to beat Trump on that. So Trump could call a declaration of national emergency. And one thing you have to realize is that because he can do that, Trump is going to get a border barrier built one way or another if he really wants it. I think right now it seems that he does really want it. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think the Democrats are going to call his bluff. They're going to find out he's not bluffing. And he's going to declare an emergency. The Democrats will lose their minds. So will the media. Everybody's hair will be on fire. And the military is going to build a wall. That's what's going to happen. And maybe that'll be a wall that the Democrats wouldn't want built. Like a concrete wall, not a steel slat kind of wall. So no one really should be under any misimpressions here. The Democrats are not making a principled stand. This is purely a political power play. It's a play that's intended to solidify them as a governing majority, basically for the foreseeable future, maybe the rest of this century. And what they're really trying to do is create, through illegal immigration and legal immigration, a political or an economic underclass. And in the case of these people coming through the southern border, an economic underclass of non-English speaking, uneducated, unskilled people who will become economically dependent almost immediately on the government, which let's face it, that's Democrats like purview. That's their wheelhouse, opening up the Treasury for all kinds of social safety net programs. And that'll go on for at least a generation, and depending on how much immigration we're talking about, could go on for several generations. That's well past your lifetime and my lifetime. Okay? That's what the Democrats are planning here. It's kind of a variation on the Cloward-Piven strategy of just basically imploding the country. Now, besides the Democrats, who actually benefits from this catastrophe that they're planning? Well, it's the very rich. I mean the really rich. Now, I don't mean somebody who makes $300,000 a year rich. That's pretty good. But that's not the rich I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people who, most of them don't even get paid in money. They get paid in like stock options, or they get paid in stock appreciation rights. You should look that one up sometime. I'm talking about really, really super wealthy people that need a lot, that hire a lot of people to do things that they could pay very little for that labor. That would be great. People looking for cheap labor. Now, let me give you an example of what I mean. In Putnam County, New York, there's a town called Brewster. Now, Brewster, New York, used to be, and to some declining extent still is, a working to middle class town. There's some nice homes in Brewster. I know people there. But I will tell you that most of the people that live in Brewster are not rich. They're like maybe local business owners, things like that. But in the village of Brewster, right in the heart of Brewster, it is completely overrun with Guatemalans who are here illegally. And when I say overrun, I mean it's completely overrun. Totally. And those people didn't move to Brewster because Brewster's such a great place to live, although it wasn't bad for a long time, and still in parts not so bad. But they came here because just over the border, see where Brewster is, Brewster's right on the border of Connecticut and northern Westchester County. That's the next county south of Putnam. That part of Westchester County is filled with really wealthy people. I mean, you'll find a number of horse farms, very large, sprawling estates, super wealthy people. You have towns in Fairfield County, which is just adjacent to northern Westchester and that part of Putnam County. You have very wealthy towns like New Canaan and Darien, and further south, Greenwich, but some parts of the northern parts of Greenwich aren't far from this area. And then in Westchester, you have towns like Pound Ridge. You get the idea. You got Pound Ridge. You've got Bedford, Wackabuck. Wackabuck is like an extremely well-to-do town. All of these places have horse farms, orchards, lots of places where they need low-skilled labor that they don't have to pay a lot for. And so these places happen to be, by the way, overwhelmingly Democrat. That's not a coincidence. And you know who else lives in Westchester, in that particular part of Westchester County? Or at least he has a home there. Not sure if he spends much time there. George Soros. Now, if there's anybody that's an open borders guy, he's the guy. All right? And so what you have here is an example of who is benefiting from all of this low skill and low education and low pay. These people are paid off the books and they're paid dirt wages. And by the way, they put out local business, local landscapers, or local landscapers are forced to hire people just to stay in business that are these illegal aliens and pay them these low wages. Or they end up competing with some illegals who pool their money together and then create their own businesses and undercut the American citizen running his business. I mean, this is what's happening all over the place. You see it everywhere in Putnam and northwestern Westchester County. You see it all over the place. And you see it in Fairfield County too. And so all those people that are in Brewster, most of them don't work in that particular area. There's not as much work there, as there is over in northern Westchester and Fairfield County. And they just happen to all be Democrats, and they just happen to be all promoting open borders and this kind of illegal immigrant flow. Now, this is why we have an illegal immigrant flood in this country. This is why. Because there are people who benefit. The politicians on the Democrat side think that they can solidify a voting base forever. And on the economic side, there's a group of people who feel that they can benefit from the low-paid and low-skilled labor. That's what's happening. The politicians are using it to their advantage, and so are these wealthy people. Now, if you're disgusted by this as much as I am, then you should call your congressman and you should call your senators and let them know that you support what President Trump wants to do. Because whether you like President Trump or not, whether you think he's too rude and you think he's a boorish man, I mean, no matter what you think of the guy, what he wants to do with the border makes sense. And you should support it. I think everybody should support it. Even if you don't vote for the guy, if he runs for president again in 2020, or if he gets impeached, whatever happens. This is that important, because letting people into the country unfettered the way they're doing doesn't help you or me. The Democrats don't care about you or me. They just don't. The Republicans don't care either. You know who cares? Trump. And he's the one taking the heat right now. And I think that the Republicans, they're getting wobbly, some of them. And I think that that's why you have to call. Because otherwise, if you don't call, and if Trump doesn't get this border secured by hook or crook, then it's going to be Katie bar the door. You're going to have a real problem. That's it for me. I'm Tony Cadaspati. Sorry about the dogs. What are you guys doing? Anyway, sorry about the dogs. And I'll speak to you soon. Take a look at the YouTube channel. Take a look at the podcasts and the website. I think there's some interesting stuff there. Thanks a lot. Take care.